Thank you so much for coming today and spending your Wednesday morning here with us. I appreciate your time. I'd like to thank Moa and Anne-Marie Craig, who gave me the opportunity to share my experiences with you today. Preparing for this talk made me ask a lot of questions about my art practice. I had to reflect upon the processes and how it has changed me over the past years. I had to do a lot of research, read many articles and few books, and I had a lot of long conversations to better understand the role of art and art making on our mental health. But before I start, I'd like just to make a few points here that I'm not trained or licensed in the field of art and mental health or wellness. This presentation is solely based on my own research and experiences being an artist and living as an artist. My emphasis today will be on the process of art making and not on the end products. But drawings and paintings can tell a lot about their creators. Art making is not a treatment for any mental or physical illness, but rather it's a powerful tool to heal and self-care and help others as well. We will have time for Q&A at the end and a short exercise that we can all participate. So the big question is, what is the role of art in our lives and in what ways it can be beneficial to our well-being? We know that art has been used as a means of communication since the dawn of humanity. It's a way to record our history and our stories. Art making in any form helps us express and explore what is happening to us and around us. These are two examples of cave paintings. The top one is from perhaps more than 30,000 years ago in France. And the other one is created over the span of 8,000 years in Argentina. So looking at these drawings or cave paintings, what can we learn about the creators? We can tell for sure that those people knew that charcoal leaves marks on the walls of the caves. And we knew that over time, they found out new natural pigments to use as paint, as we can see a lot of whites and reds. The lower left drawing shows the multiple layers of handprints. Perhaps those people wanted just to say that we were here, and we can tell that they were great observers. Just look at the shape of the animals. And the highlighted sentence at the top is my own recommendation. If you have time, watch the documentary Cave of the Forgotten Dreams. I have watched it, God knows, maybe 5 or 6 times. And every time I watch this documentary, I learn something new. And it's just awe-inspiring how those people could, make those beautiful animal images on the caves. We also know that, looking at these drawings, that these people over time find out that it's best to draw inside the caves because rain and snow would wash out any drawings outdoors. So you see that there is power in images. They can captivate us and make us curious about the creators. You learn a lot about the artists, the context, and the environment they were living by looking at different art forms. Art also has been used to record our transformations and ideas. This more contemporary painting by Claude Monet shows the changing landscapes by Industrial Revolution during the late 19th centuries. When we look at this painting, we say, okay, train station. But imagine for those people at that time, this was terrifying. Just the smoke and the shape of the cloud in an enclosed area and the loud noise that the train and locomotives would create. This was something very new for them. So he was trying to capture what he felt and how what people were seeing in their environment at the time. Art also is used to record our failures and mistakes. This painting depicts the Spanish Civil War in 1937. And we can only hope that we as species can learn and not to repeat. Unfortunately, it's happening right now at this moment. But in what other ways art has been used? Art and image making are the reflection of our inner world. Self-expression and expressionism are modern terms that can be tracked back to around 1850s. Here are two examples. I think personally Rembrandt is a master of self-portraits and self-expression paintings. Can I use the term selfies? You can feel his playfulness in that drawing. Look at, the eyes, the lips, even the hair. He's been just, playful. In contrast, Van Gogh's painting hints at his illness. The expression in his eyes and mouth are just so sad. Ironically, he wrote to his brother that he believed that the act of painting would help him to heal. And I'm going to repeat, the act of painting would help him to heal. He also believed that the process of painting is helpful for his mental for his mental health. So far, we can agree that image making is a powerful tool and art can depict and or create different moods. Speaking of art as a therapy, when Frida Kahlo was making paintings such as this one, her aim was not to become a famous person or make millions of dollars selling her works. She was just trying to cope with her physical and emotional pain. This is the only way that she knew how to move forward in her life. Let's look at these two paintings. We are not going to analyze or talk about the painting styles. What I would like for you to see is the feeling that you get looking at paintings such as these. I get anxious when I look at these paintings. I don't know about you, especially the one to the left. This is a very dark painting. This person devouring another person. This is just terrible. It evokes strong emotions in you when you look at these works. We can take a deep breath here, right? This is a very different painting. This is in total contrast. This painting is all about a warm, bright, and lazy day. We can almost smell the ocean breeze, the flowers, and feel the softness of fur. You can reach out and touch the smoothness of marble. Very peaceful for many, but perhaps not for some of us who become uncomfortable with animal fur and animal cruelty. Or perhaps there is so much detail in the fabric, the hair, the vegetation. Maybe you don't find a focus in this type of works. Perhaps this painting with all over blue can create a calm space for you. Mark Rothko is the master of depicting human emotions like joy, grief, and melancholy. And of course, if you are into meditation, Rothko Chapel in Texas, Houston, Texas, is a place to go and visit and spend some time. If you prefer even less color paintings, perhaps this work would speak to you. Agnes Martin uses subdued color palette and simple grids of lines. Ironically, she had also mental health problems, but her paintings are about joy, happiness, beauty, and innocence. Let us compare these two paintings side by side and see their effects on us. They're very different, right? It's quite all right if none of these paintings that we saw so far could evoke a sense of calmness for you. In that case, I really encourage you to walk through the galleries here at the museum and find that unique work of art that speaks to you in terms of calm and peace. There are many great artworks at the museum here. Art has the power to slow us down. It can take our minds off our everyday life and provide us with a relaxing distraction. If looking at art can be relaxing, imagine how much you can benefit from creating it. Art connects our minds and bodies. Unlike other healing modalities like meditation or exercise, which engages either mind or body. And you don't have to be an artist or make a painting or drawing or create a masterpiece. Remember that it's the process of making that is relaxing. It is during this time that you can self-reflect and release the negative emotions. You might choose to write, knit, or work with clay. Perhaps collecting objects is relaxing to you. We should not be confusing hoarding with collecting. When you start a collection, you are being very specific. You look for certain things that bring you comfort, joy, or bring back memories. Your collection might be just buttons, seashells, or anything. So I encourage you, when you go back to your home and when you are in your own personal space, look around you and start taking notes on the things that you have in your space, whether in the form of painting, prints, anything on your wall, anything on your table, the type of carpet or pillows that you have. Just really start looking mindfully. And by that, I mean, take starting notes on the colors that you have picked for your personal space. Do you see a lot of reds or whites or grays? I don't know. Take a note. Do you have a lot of textures in your space? Do you have natural objects like organic objects? Do you collect? Do you have any piece of, I don't know, like wood, or do you collect plants? So when you start to really look mindfully in your own personal space, and when you start to take notes for yourself, that is the time that you start to understand yourself better. You start to explore things about yourself that you never knew, or perhaps you never paid attention before. This is a process of healing, and this is a process of self-reflecting, even if you're not going to create any piece of art. For me, obviously, it was painting and drawing. Growing up and from an early age, I knew that I could not live without art. I could spend hours browsing art books or draw in my room and never feel bored. I made this painting when I was a student at UWM. I was going through a very rough time at the time, dealing with my own loneliness, trying to fit in this new environment, raising a family, and of course, schooling. I wanted to show how dark and sad I was. This is a scene from a sad celebration in Iran. The entire country becomes black and mourning for 10 full days. I never participated in any of those celebrations. I just wanted to use that as a metaphor to use my emotions. My face is colorless here because I was like a ghost, in Iran. I was here. My only clothing are left behind, and I was bleeding inside. I started showing my drawings in early 2014. And as I was expecting, I saw a lot of resistance and rejections from my viewers. And the reason was because I was using a foreign language that was not familiar to them. Their comments were not helpful at all. Some would suggest if I could incorporate or use English instead. But they would not understand that I could not express myself using English words or phrases. It was superficial and not genuine. Even though I appreciated their time and efforts in helping me in my art career, but they were dismissing something that was very critical for my mental health at the time. What they were missing to see was my desperate struggle to overcome the deep nostalgia and longing at the time. Writing repetitively in my mother tongue was so soothing and comforting. I was rooting in this soil, and I could not nourish and take care of this new transplanted me without making these drawings. Repetition in any form is very therapeutic and can help in releasing any tensions that we might have. Writing certain words or phrases over and over is a meditative practice for me. It makes me focus on the shapes of the words and letters, and after a while, all I see are lines. These lines subsequently morph into shapes, textures, and patterns on paper. And the picture to the right is a work in process, and the left is the finished drawing. While making these drawings, I reflect on my inner world and on the people in my life. I ask a lot of questions about my relationship with them, what makes me happy or sad, why do I feel this way or that way, and what is the reason? These types of questions might not be easy to discuss, but we can find the root causes through art making. These collages or self-portraits are made by some young mothers during a workshop. They are expressing their priorities and what they are wishing for. The one to the right, she's trying to show the external forces affecting her life and loved ones. But they both deeply care about their families, children, and their safety. The process of creating art can help us in understanding our lives. It may not provide us any solutions at that moment, but we can find the root causes. The continuous practice of drawing, showing, and talking about them helped me in improving my self-esteem and overcoming my own anxieties. I'm generally an introvert, and I was very shy many years ago. Talking about my art would terrify me, especially if I had to speak in front of a large audience, such as yourself today. But I could only overcome this anxiety through my art practice. I started slow and steady, practicing in front of a few people, then to small groups, and eventually large classes. And it was just through the act of art making. After a while of writing repetitively, I realized that I needed simpler visual elements to communicate, but I didn't know how. I only knew that it had to be meaningful and related to my heritage. To find the answer, I started looking at Persian calligraphy from a different perspective. This beautiful work from 1883 became my inspiration. I wanted to create something similar without using any written language in it. The dots and lines that are distilled from written text became my new companions in my studio. As you can see to the right, dots are used as measuring devices in Persian calligraphy. And there are different systems of measurements. Here is just one system. Like you can see, the 3 stacked dots, that is the basic measurements for the tall letters. And then the 5 horizontal dots is the basic measurement for other forms of the letters. And you need to have 2 dots between the tallest point to the baseline. So this is how a calligrapher can write precisely. And after a while, it becomes very automatic for them. At the beginning, it's very hard, to make sure that you have this much dots, vertical or horizontal. But then it becomes like like reading for you. This is one of the early works in the dot series. I'd like to mention that pen or ink on paper are generally not forgiving materials and mediums. Any mistakes while drawing results in failure, and I have to start the work from scratch again. You cannot erase or cover the mistakes with paint, and therefore it requires your full attention and focus. But this is not an intense process. On the contrary, it is very relaxing because I use just one color and dots only. And I can better understand how to use them instead of dealing with a variety of colors and visual elements. After a while, the dots have turned into circular shapes. This is an example. The time that I spent on this layered work was mostly on sketching and making samples, trying to figure out how to layer the mylar. Using translucent mylar and layering them is a metaphor on the interference that causes us to forget details of our memories. We might need a letter, a picture, or something from a specific time or an event in the past to help us remember the bigger picture. The process of cutting and layering was like time travel for me, going back in time for a second and then be present in the moment for another cut in the mylar. So most of the materials that I use and the process and the visual elements that I use, they're all metaphors for me to depict the memory. Here also I'm using simple circles to depict the flow of time and life. Restricting yourself in using 1 or 2 visual elements or colors may sound challenging, but it's a fun way to generate new ideas. So you might think that, okay, just lines, what's the next for me? So the drawings that you see on the wall in the State Gallery, I've started that body of work in 2018, and I made it clear for me that I'm going to use just lines and dots. And of course, the dots are rhomboid shapes coming from Persian calligraphy. And I was trying, and I'm still challenging myself to come up with new designs and compositions using just humble lines and dots. Some days it's very hard because I just don't know what to make anymore. But overall, it's a very fun activity, and I encourage you, if you like, just use lines and dots, when you're in front of TV or waiting for someone, or, you're somewhere, you're bored, just have a small sketchbook and a pen and start, making small sketches using just lines. It's very therapeutic. Art making is relaxing and playful, and it involves exploring new territories, materials, and mediums. It makes you listen to your intuition and come up with new ideas to express yourself. One day, as I was brainstorming in my studio, trying to find different mediums other than traditional pens or pencils to write with, I was looking around, and then there was a small Ziploc bag, on my table, and I had plenty of paint. Then I just said, let me just put the paint in this Ziploc bag and use it as pencil or pen. Then I cut the corner and started to squeeze some paint, on a plastic sheet. And, while squeezing, I was just making, words with this paint. So the next day when I came back to my studio, it was almost dry, not completely, but I was very, very excited because it was still writing, but with a different medium. Then when it was completely dry, I just, peeled off the strings of dry paint and I would turn them into different things. So this is an early example that these are layers of dried paint mounted on a wooden board. I have few examples in my exhibition. The biggest work is dried acrylic paint, hand sewn on canvas. This is another medium that I often use. If you are into sewing and dressmaking, these are sequence pins. They are very, very small, tiny, tiny pins. This work is 12 by 12, and I was recreating or redrawing the shape of the letters. This is one letter from Farsi that is repeated and mirror imaged, and I'm recreating the shapes using these, tiny pins. It was very time consuming. It was not easy because I had to push the pin through the foam board, but it was very relaxing. And this is just one example. I had made 36 other boards that are smaller, but it was a bigger installation using just the pins. One very important aspect of art is that you can become part of a creative community and find supportive group with shared values. This is the picture of my studio at Red Line. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore in Milwaukee, but we are here just because of art today. If it wasn't because of art, we would not be present, or maybe we would, but that's the reason I have this talk today. Art makes everything pleasant and more enjoyable. That's the power of art. You can also help others relax and create joyful and meaningful memories through art making. I took these pictures this past summer in my studio. My dad's hands, working with clay and helping me with the tasbih project. It was such a joy to hear his footsteps knocking on my studio door every morning. We both benefited working on this project together, me saving a lot of time and him feeling needed and helpful. And most of all, every time I walk by the tasbihs, I remember those moments with him. So every morning he would come. Of course, his hands are much stronger than mine. He would make, balls of clay. He would roll them and, warm them. And then he would put them in those, plastic bags so they don't dry out. And then I would come sit by him and I would start pinching, making these, semicircles and put them together to create these larger beads. My mom here helping me with a bigger installation that's in the gallery. So I was like the project manager. I would walk between my studio and the living room, helping my dad, and then going and checking on my mom. And every morning I would pin these strings of dry paint on the canvas, and she would sew them for me. Sometimes it was too hard for her because she has, knee issues and neck issues. She needed to take a break. Then I would take over the project. But they were really, really helpful with these two projects for me. And the beauty is that they are not here. They couldn't be here. They had to return. But when I come to the exhibition, every time I pass by these works, it's just a reminder of, the times that we spent together. As I mentioned several times during this presentation, it's not the end product. It's the process of creating that is very important and crucial on our mental health. It can be a simple act of collecting, looking at a printed material, cutting and gluing them together to create a bigger picture. It's up to you how you want to use your creative mind, for this process. So these are examples of one of the works and the working process. So I was reading newspapers for the entire 3 months and trying to find phrases and words that I was looking for. And I had, 3 separate, plates, collecting them, based on their font size, and then using them to collage and make this other work that is called My Fingerprint. And the reason for that work is the first process of immigration is you have to provide your fingerprints to the authorities. That's the first step. And before you immigrate in your original country, and the first thing that they require when you immigrate with the proper papers, again, you have to provide your fingerprints here. And we know that every fingerprint is specific to that individual. So this is my fingerprint. Art making is relaxing and healing, and you don't have to be an artist or create a perfect artwork. It is simply exploring the creative part of your brain, being mindful while art making, and just being aware of your thoughts at the moment. This is just a short list on benefits of art making. And I ask you if you can add anything to this list based on your own personal experiences looking at art or creating art. So art as a therapy is not becoming a great artist or creating a masterpiece. It's about using the creative process to acknowledge and recognize the feelings that you cannot describe. Art making in its simplest form is a powerful tool to release stress and emotions. It helps us to focus and cope with our loneliness. Art making makes us reconnect with the world around us. It stimulates our memories and reduces negative thoughts. It boosts our self-esteem and confidence. And finally, when you complete a project, it gives you a sense of accomplishment and you feel good about yourself. Going to art fairs, galleries, and museums can be a fun and positive experience. You might learn something new or rediscover your passion. The health benefits are undeniable. At the end, I encourage you to invite your community members to come to this beautiful building and browse the galleries and the collection and spend and create quality time with your loved ones. Thank you.